US President Donald Trump has marked his 100th day in office with a rally in Michigan and a primetime television interview with ABC News. In both, he defended his record, saying he had reduced prices, generated massive investment in the economy and made America respected again in world affairs. But today, official figures showed that the US economy shrank in the first quarter of this year.
There was no reason for Putin.
In an exclusive interview with ABC News senior national correspondent Terry Moran, President Trump claimed his re-election has changed Vladimir Putin's war aims in Ukraine.
He would like to stop the war. I think that if it weren't for me, I think he'd want to take over the whole country personally.
And he defended his tariff policy's domestic impact on prices.
I said all these things during my campaign. I said, you're going to have a transition period.
Hard times are ahead?
I don't think so. I think great times are ahead. Look, since I came in, gasoline is down, groceries are down, egg prices are down.
Later, at a political rally in the outskirts of Detroit, the president was in celebratory mood with the MAGA faithful.
And we're here tonight in the heartland of our nation to celebrate the most successful first 100 days of any administration in the history of our country, and that's according to many, many people.
They cheered pictures of alleged gang members being deported to El Salvador, and he promised to protect American workers with tariffs. While the mood was celebratory, the party atmosphere ended abruptly this morning when first quarter growth figures were published, and they showed the economy shrank, which prompted a big sell-off on the stock market. In Cabinet a short time ago, the president said it was Joe Biden's fault.
And I have to start off by saying that's Biden. That's not Trump, because we came in on January, this is the quarterly numbers, and we came in and I was very against everything that Biden was doing in terms of the economy, destroying our country.
But when you're in office, you own it.
And Sean joins us now from Washington. Well, Sean, the celebrations didn't last too long, did they?
No, they didn't, and that print this morning on GDP growth was the thing that threw the bucket of cold water over anybody who had been partying last night. The president trying to explain it away, also cabinet members trying to explain it away on television this morning. But the bottom line is the reason why the US economy has shrunk is because of the president's tariff policy. And he's trying to blame Joe Biden for it. But a year ago, he was saying a rise in the stock market was the Trump effect, that Trump was going to win the election. So he's claiming credit for that. You heard him in that ABC interview saying that everybody was warned, everybody knew during the election campaign that there was going to be tariffs and there was going to be what he called a transition period. Well, the transition period is here now. And because President Trump won the election last November, companies knew that they were going to be facing tariffs. So what did they do? They went out and bought loads of imports. They bought stuff from Europe. They bought stuff from China. They stuck it in warehouses to try and get around the tariffs. And as a result, that affected the way GDP was recorded. And so the economy has shrunk. Now, he said that was the first quarter. We only got in the 20th of January. Yes, indeed. But after those first quarter numbers were recorded, that's when the real tariffs were published. That's when the big, huge economic shock of the tariffs, much higher than anybody expected, has kicked in. So we now have to see what happens in the second quarter, how that translates through, because as you know, 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, that equals recession. David?
OK, Sean Whelan in Washington, thanks for that.
Well, staying with President Trump's first 100 days before coming on air, I spoke to Republican strategist Bill O'Reilly, who gave his thoughts on the start of President Trump's second term.
I can say one thing for sure is that this is not the Burkean conservatism that we've seen for the last 50 or 60 years in America. He's, he's shot out of a cannon. Sharon, we spoke, just when he was elected or just after he was elected. And we talked about how he had a very robust agenda that he was going to try and drive through. He's doing it through executive order, which is worrisome. That's not permanent. The next president can come in and erase that stuff with the stroke of a pen. So he's out there it's as though he's trying to accomplish things that the conservatives and others and populists, I'd say, have wanted for decades and decades and decades all at once. And that comes with its inherent risks. And that's why it's not Burkean. That great Irish philosopher understood that things have to move in measured ways.
Yes, he's certainly moving fast. But one of the priorities to the American voters was that he would bring down prices from day one. Now, that hasn't happened. And the stock market has had the worst start to a presidency since the 70s. And the economy today reporting its worst quarter since 2022. How long can he blame the previous administration for all of that?
He's still doing it. He did it today, but I don't think it's being accepted by the news media or by the public now. This is his economy, and everybody knows it, so that won't work. He's making really, really bold moves here, and I understand why he's doing it. COVID was a huge wake-up call for America. We didn't have prescription drugs, and the computer chips was a wake-up call for America. Like, there's so much stuff has moved offshore, so he's trying to do it in this huge, bold move with the tariffs that have never worked historically, and conservatives have always been against tariffs in the U.S. But he's trying to do it to force these businesses back. And there's some Americans that about, I guess, 42% of Americans are willing to give him that shot. Like take the short-term pain for the long-term gain. But Americans are impatient. If the pain goes on much longer, he's going to be in trouble.
The stock market, too, doesn't like it. So how long can he keep the stock market unhappy?
Yeah, the trouble with the stock market is that so many Americans are invested in it through their pension plans. So it's not just the Rockefellers or the wealthy with the stock market. It's every little local school board, and everybody has their money invested in some type of fund. So that's something that really drives the American psyche, no question. And the market's dropping again today. There's not going to be a lot of patience for that, I can tell you that. And as the store shelves begin to be empty, there's about a 35% drop off in shipments from China to California. That's going to start showing up on store shelves, and that's going to be noticed, and it's going to cause a lot of anxiety in the country.
Another one of his priorities is something he said he could fix within the first week or so was peace. He said he'd bring peace to the Middle East and to Ukraine. He hasn't managed to do that. Does that matter to voters there? I
don't think so. It matters. I mean, the U.S. is very aligned with Israel, and I'm in the New York region, which is very pro-Israel. This region, so I think the Americans see him trying, and even when he does kind of outrageous things like turn Gaza into a resort, it's kind of Donald Trump's way of shaking up the conversation. And to a great extent, the conversation needed to be shaken up here in America and arguably worldwide. So he does that in kind of an outrageous way, but there's method to his madness. So I think they see him at least concerned about Israel in the Middle East and focused on it and maybe trying some unorthodox things. So that's not something that's really caught up with him here.